The Indie Council is in session. Welcome. This is a place for the leading voices from across the industry to gather to talk news, titles, and everything indie. I'm your master of ceremonies, Jill Grote, the Indie Informer, and lighting the official bang candle. And
Continue.
maybe burning his eyebrows off?
A spark hit my mustache.
uh, the almost mustacheless man speaking is 6-1 Indie's Wickedly Funny creative director, Mike Towndrow. How you doing, Mike?
Hi. I'm okay.
Everyone who's hearing this on audio is just in suspense, not knowing whether or not your facial hair is gone.
Do I look okay?
Yeah, it's totally fine.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Don't even worry about it.
I don't think I could do the not mustache look, just the beard, not mustache look. Nah.
Hmm. I,
So
I
good.
saw a picture of you. I can't remember. I think it was in relation to like Kind of Funny or something, with you like shaved faced. And I'm like, you look so baby.
Yeah. Never again. I have too much of a baby face, especially now that I have the inability to grow hair on my head.
Mm.
I can't do beardless anymore.
Yeah. Maybe if you shaved it off, it would come back on top.
One of these days, when I have the gall to do so, I do want to do Dr. Robotnik cosplay or Halloween decoration or something, but that does
Nice.
require shaving the beard. So we'll see.
Or it's just your twist on it.
It's true. It could be.
And then we also have a troll slayer so dedicated to the job she went to Vegas to play Balatro, Janet Garcia.
Hell yeah. I didn't win big, so I'm here this week. And I'm here indefinitely until I figure out how to play any of the games. But yeah, the gamers were there. I was
Yeah.
gaming.
You were like literally sitting at the slots just like playing on your Steam Deck.
I know. I took, for those who don't know where these deep cut references are, I went to Vegas and I took my Steam Deck on the trip and I like took a picture in the casino with the Steam Deck, hoping to pull out Balatro, but the Steam Deck was dead. So I'm like, I'll have to just have the console unless someone can Photoshop in the splash screen in post or something.
Yeah. But if you had won like $1 million, you'd be like, well, I'm out of here. No need to cover games anymore.
Yeah, because it was, that's all I was really here for, the
What's the
lucrative
money?
financial nature of the industry.
Yeah, the financial stability is really where it's at nowadays.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better segue into today's indie news because it's layoffs and they can go fuck right off. It's across the industry. It is worldwide. It is thousands of people. I feel like my heart keeps getting pulled out and stomped on. I'm going to start off with Deck 9 as in sort of in the indie sphere, but of course there are AAA studios and companies that are having issues as well. But Deck 9 officially posted this on Twitter saying, like many others in the games industry right now, Deck 9 has been affected by the game industry's worsening market conditions. Pause. Hate that phrase. Unpause.
Yep.
Today, we made the difficult decision to lay off 20% of our staff. These people are amazing, talented, and awesome developers. They have made a huge impact during their time at Deck 9 Games, and we did not take this decision lightly. Please hire these people if you can. They're amazing. Like that sentence better. This does seem to be a situation where Top Brass were trying very hard to do what they could. I believe what I'm hearing is like upper management did take pay cuts in order to like make sure that some things were mitigated.
Yeah.
I love that they focused, like they said what they needed to say in the first part for legal. But I love that they did focus on that second section of just saying like, these are great people. We didn't want to let them go. Like, please hire them. Please, just sort of like letting people know like they didn't deserve to be gone. Mike, how you feeling?
I mean, awful. I mean, it's terrible regardless. Compared to a lot of the, we're gonna get to like the EA side of things as well on the AAA space, but it's at least nice to hear. And again, it's like bittersweet, but like if we are gonna pull something nice out of it, to hear the higher ups tried. like they did take those cuts. Like there is like, you go back to the Wii U days, you hear about Iwata and Miyamoto taking those like big cuts to make sure like the entire staff was safe. Like obviously Nintendo is a different story because they have like that kind of wiggle room in order to do that and really do save all the jobs. But
It's also
um
mandated by the government to
yeah,
be
that
done.
too.
So
So it's nice that like yeah, they definitely tried to mitigate it as much as possible. But it's awful. It's scary.
Yep.
And I think you said it perfectly. It's heartbreaking. Like every time we read something, it's just atrocious.
Janet, anything to throw in on that one?
yeah, I mean, I think one of the other unfortunate trends of this is there's really not, I wouldn't say no rhyme or reason, because obviously like financials do, come at play, and like there's a lot of negative shifts happening in the economy as a whole. So obviously none of these things are happening in isolation. But the reason I make that comment is for so many of these teams, quality didn't really end up mattering. Like you can put out incredible titles, you can have incredible sales, and there's not really anything that will make you immune to the cuts or the layoffs in general. And obviously that's a little bit more apparent when we start to zoom out into the more, triple A mainstream space, because we know like how much money that makes a little bit more, and we know like what the sales numbers are and how like massive those are. But even in like Deck Nine's case, having made Life is Strange True Colors one of my favorite games of that year, so many great titles. And yeah, it's really unfortunate, I think, especially because as we've talked about before, you lose not just the people but like all the expertise that they came with. And as this happens more and more in the industry, we see the industry shrink by way of not just like lack of job availability, but also I think um discouragement from new people entering in the final straw for a lot of creators who can't keep pouring into this kind of situation that's so unstable. Like at a certain point, like people do have to reach their breaking points, especially depending on like the circumstance surrounding like how they been their career, like what they need as far as life. So, yeah, just a really unfortunate trend that just keeps continuing, and there's really not an end in sight, even though it's only February. So,
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, kind of on that note, like what is what is the breaking point? Like this, yeah, if we keep trending this way, it's not sustainable for like just us as human beings, like
like,
emotionally, mentally, fit, like physically in
yes,
some cases. Like
I'm really worried that we've hit it and we won't know until a few years down the line when
sure,
we
yeah,
feel the loss of the institutional knowledge and all of the experience, when we start getting games that are like, yeah. Um this round of layoffs are always terrible, layoffs are always horrible, and heartbreaking. This round of layoffs was very personal for for me and John at the Indie Informer, because Game Informer had layoffs.
yeah,
Um, and so that was Blake Hester, who I worked with. He was on the magazine team with me. One of the more senior uh, people there who hadn't been there since, forever. Um, he got a shout out on Kind of Funny Games Daily. Thank you guys so much for shouting him out. Blessing in particular, thank you. So hire him because he's great. But I did a sort of reaction post to how I was feeling during that moment, and it came out to be in English, is what I'm told. So go check that out on the Indian Informer if you are so inclined. But we did mention a little bit about the AAA space. Mike, do you want to jump in on that one a little bit?
sure. Yeah, the notably PlayStation and today, literally like an hour ago from recording, EA. So with PlayStation, what was it, Tuesday morning, waking up and I see a tweet from like 5 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast that yeah, they're restructuring all this good stuff. Well, not good stuff, all this bad stuff. Um and more notably the London studio completely shutting down, and there was that awful tweet circulating from like the London studio team, like arm in arm with smiles on their face from days ago with Jim Ryan, and like just yeah, a week later just gone.
Mhm.
um I know Insomniac in particular also was affected by that, and like kind of going back to what we were talking about, like with it not mattering like what the success of the game looks like nowadays. I mean, Spider-Man, as far as I'm aware, like I don't know if we got exact numbers, sold gangbusters. Like it did pretty damn well, but
Yeah.
yeah, even then it's like they're not invulnerable to, or impenetrable when it comes to the matter of the situation. And then yeah, EA today. So I think PlayStation was 900 folks in particular across the board, and then EA today was 670, I believe. And they kind of, that was like a restructuring thing as well, talking about how they're not going to totally lean into the licensed projects anymore because they're not sustainable for whatever reason, despite it being Star Wars. Well, really, primarily just Star Wars. I think that's all EA is really doing. I know, like they're still doing. There's a Jedi sequel still in the works. Iron Man is still in the works, and Black Panther is still in the works. But there was another. I'm assuming it was the rumored Mandalorian project that's now just scrapped. See, I don't know. Like that one, I don't really. I'm not really buying that because I feel like a Mandalorian game would have done pretty goddamn well for EA. But I don't know. I guess you gotta come up with some excuse when you have to put out a statement like this. So.
Yeah. Um, and speaking of things that are hard to read, let's talk for a second. Like, I know anybody who's listening to this, y'all are cool. You're here, you're with us, you're feeling the same feelings. But like share this maybe section around because there are ways not to react to this sort of information. Um and sometimes you can look the other way and be like, "Ugh, that was in poor taste." But, when it's someone like for me, when it's a friend that it's happened to and someone goes, "Oh, they should have known that they were getting laid off," or "Game journalists suck," or whatever. Or in the case of like developers who have lost their job, if you're out there and your immediate reaction is, "But what about the game I was interested in?" Like someone just like lost their livelihood. Someone just lost the ability to like go to healthcare if they need it. So maybe that's not the first thing we think of. Um yeah. And this is this happens a lot, and I don't think it's even just like people who are rude or mean spirited. It just seems like maybe because we have so many layoffs coming down, people are getting really callous about what this means to people personally. um but just being like, I think one of the the hardest reactions that I come across are like apathy. Like, "Oh, that happens. That's what this industry is." It's like, no, that should not
It's
be your
not.
reaction. This is not an okay thing to happen. It is not okay for a game to be nominated for like every category of best game of the year and then its staff get laid off. Like this is not something that we should accept in our industry and something we should be pushing back against. And certainly you should not be saying like, I don't think you should have that reaction at all. I don't think that should be in your thinking, but maybe don't express it in a written form when the people involved can see it and make their day just that much worse. Am I uh, am I crazy on this one, you guys?
Yeah, let's
No,
bring
you're
back
spot on.
inside thoughts, you know? Like some of y'all don't know about inside thoughts. You're a
Y'all
bad
don't
person,
remember
keep that to
some of
yourself.
y'all some of y'all weren't around when like Twitter didn't exist, you know?
Yeah, but no,
Let's go back then.
genuinely, obviously we could go on this for a while and we will continue to, as unfortunately it probably will keep coming up. But um yeah, obviously it's easy to, I think, become numb to things, but that's when you're most lost. So it's important to fight back against that and have like, I think looking at how expansive suffering is should only make you care more about the suffering. While I think a lot of people just really love to play Oppression Olympics with anything, where it's like, oh, well, I mean, in my field, this, that, and the third, or like, again, kind of what you mentioned, Jill, of, oh, well, what'd you expect? Or, well, considering that this game was good, like, it's time and place, right? Like this, there's not a benefit or an additional, I think, way to move the conversation forward to be bogged down by negative comparisons, by like playing armchair CEO with like the pedigree of titles or anything. It's just bad news, and it should be taken as that, and it should create frustration and also evoke, change worker to worker. Like there has to be, some aspect of like some of y'all don't have worker solidarity, and that's just always going to be the case. But yeah, I think the hope is that I think after all this, or like in the midst of all this, there will be, I think, positive actions, I think, from the creators and the developers. And you even see that in like I've seen stories circulating of like places that create their own studios and kind of spin off and this, that, and the third. And obviously, like that's not to say that this will like lead to necessarily better things, but I personally have that to hold on to as far as like optimism and hope. And I hope that these people are able to find their footing again in whatever that means, even if that means not you know following this career path, if it's not in service of them at this point. But yeah, I don't know, it'd be nice if
Empathy is
people were
almost
nicer.
yeah, empathy is almost always the correct response to
Yeah.
anything, really.
There's a few things to touch on there. Like I think people, even like unrelated to layoffs and stuff, just like as gamer culture in general, if you want to call it that, people are quick to forget there are actually human beings behind
Hmm.
the games. Like they're not just like, you don't come across Spider-Man in your local Best Buy. Well, probably not anymore. And like just say like, oh yeah, cool. The Best Buy machine put out a new Spider-Man game. Like no, there are like countless of human beings that pour literal blood, sweat, and tears into these projects for years and years on end, especially on the AAA side of things. Um, yeah. So yeah, well, I think Janet, what you were saying, like playing armchair CEO is totally inappropriate and not fair, and you frankly don't know what the fuck you're talking about because there's so much nuance that goes into a lot of these things. There is unfortunately a lot of greed and a lot of negative thinking and negative intentions in certain particular cases. But to end this kind of like my take on it in a more positive light and trying to pull out the optimist in me, like I look at all of us and like in particular I look at myself and Jill. Without me getting laid off right as lockdown was happening, 6-1 Indie wouldn't exist. Jill, obviously I don't
Yeah,
think the Indie Informer would be a thing if you were still at Game Informer. So like
that's correct.
yeah, it's awful and sickening and heartbreaking in the moment, but Janet, I agree that like I think it's going to be a hard fucking road, but I do think there will be some cool things that come out of it. Not, again, not to take away how scary of a moment it is right now for so many countless human beings. Because, life just got even more real for so many people, like losing benefits and losing a salary and unimaginable consequences that comes to this conversation. But yeah, I would like to think some really cool stuff will be coming down the pipeline, to not sound like a Hallmark card, but I do think there will be light at the end of the tunnel in certain cases.
Yeah. Things are going wrong in the world when the Dark Pedestal is the one that's the optimistic side of things.
You got to do it.
Gotta
I
do
hate this
it.
side of me. No, don't bring this out of me again.
Push it down. On to a topic that brought a little bit of light into our worlds today. The Playdate update happened today for us. That's February 28th. And we got a announced release date for Mars After Midnight. That is Lucas Pope's next game on the Playdate. For anyone who doesn't know, Lucas Pope is behind The Return of the Obra Dinn and many other games like Papers, Please, Mars After Midnight. There you go. Perfect. That Obra Dinn's art is so great. It's too smart for me, but I love looking at it.
Despite owning this copy of Overdin for audio listeners of the limited run copy on Switch, never played it.
Oh, we should do that.
I should.
Yeah, we should all just have like a group. The Indie Council can't figure out the first
Yeah.
case.
Is the Indie Council too dumb for this video game?
It's our new segment. So Mars After Midnight is kind of like Papers, Please, vaguely, but like it's lighter, it's a little more cartoony. You are on Mars. Um at sort of like a community center, and you are the bouncer and janitorial staff and promoter of this place for all sorts of denizens of the galaxy to come and hang out. It is your job to sort of check to see who's coming in. So I played a little bit of this for Day of the Devs. I want to say it was Day of the Devs
Probably.
last year. Um, a lot of fun. It's so much harder than it sounds because it's supposed to be like, okay, today the community center is helping people who are angry. So you only let in, or it's like cyclopses that are angry. So you only let in creatures with one eye that look angry. And those are your only sort of like criteria. But like when you look out the little window using the Playdate's little crank, you're looking at a thing that just has no analog to anything you've known as a life form. So you're like, is that an eye? Or is that multiple eyes? Is that where its face is? Like, can I tell if it's angry or not? Um, and then you get money at the end of it based off of how well you do in letting people in and sort of like cleaning up the place after they're done eating their pie or whatever. And that money allows you to put on different events and promote to different sections of Mars or whatever. So it is a very good keep you engaged kind of loop. And it's just silly and fun. And I'm very excited to check that out. March 12th, I was not expecting it to come kind of as early as that. So I'm ready. I'm ready to check it out. And
Yeah.
anybody else here cool looking forward to it?
Yeah, super excited. I always look for more reasons to boot up the Playdate every once in a while. Like at least once a month, I'll boot up the Playdate. I'll go through the catalog and see what's going on. Yeah, Mars After Midnight is definitely the big one coming down the pipeline. But even looking at the rest of the games on the update today, the Playdate update, which was the showcase. Like there's this boat racing game that looks really cool. There's a mini golf game that looks really cool. Like I'm just still like pretty floored with a lot of the creativity and just talent that goes into a lot of these Playdate games, because I like looking at just like the gifs in motion. It is wild what this little device is capable of and how developers can manipulate the tech behind it, because I would never think that some of these games could actually run on this tiny little yellow square.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, super excited.
I think too, it's like I mean, and some of this was like pre-announced of like, hey, here's like the trajectory of what the Playdate looks like. Like in the lead up to their launch, they sort of talked about a few extra like updates coming down the pipeline. But I'm fairly impressed with how much they've kept up with supporting it with software, with like giving it like the, you know, promotional attention with showcases, and also like even if it's just its presence like at conventions and having like giant versions of the Playdate that you can like hang out next to and all
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I just it's like that it's kind of my physical overdone, you know? It's like it's sitting there and I'm like, I haven't really put a lot of time into it outside of that time I spent reviewing it, but we'll see. I don't know. I feel like again the backlight does kind of stop me, but at the same time, like if the backlight was there, I probably still would maybe not get to it. It's just one of those things where it's sort of in the back. Like I just need to pick it up, but then like, are you going to though? And it's like, oh, the answer is no. It's like it's so frustrating for myself, but I don't know. It's one of those things.
It's a
Jen,
challenge
I'm
of.
gonna
Oh, go ahead.
no, Jen, I'm gonna mail you a headlamp.
Yeah, go for it. I'll send you my postal
Please
address.
wear it on the
Please
show.
do.
Yeah, why not?
It is a challenge of being in this space. Like the indie space itself is already niche, and to have a niche inside of that niche, it's just so like uh, it- I like to promote whatever it is that I like in particular, but I do have to keep in mind that if nobody shows up to my website, like I'm not highlighting or spotlighting anybody. Um, so I actually do kind of want to figure out how to stream with the Playdate
Oh
because I
yeah.
was
You
sent
can.
instructions on how to do that. So at some point I'm gonna get down and dirty and just figure like
Oh yeah,
put
it's not
little
bad at
wires
all.
together and stuff.
It's all just like it's web based.
Yeah, you just like
That's
plug
all
it
it
in
is.
basically,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
it's just done.
You guys say that, and then I'm gonna call you up and be like, guys, and I'm like stuck in a jumble of wires or something.
No,
I
no,
think
it's super simple.
kind of touching on like the niche within a niche. I think that's like where like you get really damn weird and creative with things. I think, you know, another niche within the niche is like the analog pocket and
Mhm.
the newer like GBA games that are
Yeah.
dropping like literally in my hand right now. Phobos Deer, like legitimately like one of the most memorable games I played of last year. This is a limited run copy, but it's itch.io release that I've played primarily through the analog pocket. So like I really do appreciate and just cherish that creative rhythm that does come with like these regular Playdate showcases and you know regular updates to the Playdate catalog in terms of their actual storefronts. And yeah, like Janet said, I'm just impressed that I mean, how long has the Playdate been available now? Like 3 years, 2 years now?
Oh
Something
my
like that,
gosh.
yeah.
It's yeah, I've honestly I expected one good year out of it. And that was just me being not jaded or anything, but like a little bit realistic. So like kudos to them, man.
Yeah, 100%. If you don't have a play date, now might be the time. Go check it out.
Yeah.
Speaking of things to check out, we are entering into March, which is going to host a bevy of industry events and showcases. And I have so many things floating around. I just wanted to kind of get them on my calendar and in my head, kind of on straight. So I wanted to shout out the ones that I could remember. And if y'all remember anything else, uh, let me know because these are the ones I can recall. Coming up real quick, we've got Dames for Games having a showcase March 6th, starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Women led games showcase March 8th through the 10th, so multi day thing starting at 10 a.m. each day. The Mix slash Kind of Funny Spring Showcase is coming up around GDC time, and we believe that that's March 15th at 10 a.m. I don't know 100% if that is correct, but that's what the website says at the moment. If you are in the Bay around GDC time, go to Day of the Devs. The on-site showcase is that really a thing? Kind of.
I think that's what they call it.
Okay. On-site showcase is March 17th. That's St. Patrick. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
Go celebrate by playing games late into the night. It's always a fun time and it's totally free. So if you're in the area, there's no reason not to check that out. The 6-1 Indie Showcase is happening March 20th. I wonder if anybody here could tell us more about that.
I wonder why one of the three individuals on this podcast is completely exhausted and burnt out at the moment. Yeah, 6-Way Indie Showcase is happening Wednesday, March 20th at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, the unofficial kickoff to your PAX East weekend. Giving you a little scoop for the council, as I almost burned my beard off and put the lighter down. For the first time ever, we are doing a pre-show. We're going to do it a little differently, though. It's not like, you know, we're going to respect people's times, all that good stuff. It's just there are so many games we want to show off. So yeah, we developed a different take on what we want to do for a pre-show. So main show is starting at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, but I'm currently editing the video, but I think 8:50 a.m. Pacific, 11:50 a.m. Eastern will be when the pre-show starts. And then right after that, we are, currently in the process of recording a bunch of developer interviews. I think at the moment we have 19 that will be going live on the website as soon as the showcase ends, along with a bunch of hands-on previews and impressions for some of the games and a big old post-show podcast where first half, me and Kyle are talking about a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, which is going to be a trip because we were put through the ringer this time around. And then the second half of the show is just a conversation about each and every one of the games more individually.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a good time.
The only thing that I had noted on this showcase, the showcase that my friend is killing himself to put on, is whether or not I'm gonna have to watch it on BART because I travel into the city for GDC. And so that's the first time I saw the 6-1 Indie Showcase, which was the mini indie showcase at the time.
Back in the day, yeah.
Was on BART, and I'm literally like watching like this and like reacting, and people around me think I'm interesting.
Listen, blame PAX for that. When we first did the first showcase,
Yeah.
GDC was in March, PAX was in April. It was a great time. And then all of a sudden, Reed Pop was like, you know what? Same week as GDC. Let's go.
Please go back. Please change that.
God, it's awful.
Yeah. Speaking of PAX East, another showcase hitting around that time is the Future Games Showcase for March 21st at 4 p.m. Eastern time, and I put not West Coast, Best Coast time because it is in honor of PAX East. So you're welcome, everyone. And then, of course, 6-1 Indie and Vicarious PR have announced the partnership for the Indie Game Awards. And I don't want you to like tell me anything that you can't tell me, but I don't think there's like official date window for that one.
It's as you expect for an award show. It's coming later in the year.
Okay, you heard it here first.
Nebulous Q4 2024. A lot of cool things lined up. I think when me and Jana were talking about it last week, it's no secret that the Indie Council are going to be involved in some way, shape, or form that we're not going to talk about publicly yet. But yeah, should be a good time.
Nice.
Secrets.
Shh.
But what's not a secret? Balatro has earned the jackpot, apparently gaining $1 million in its first 8 hours.
Bonkers.
I love it. You
wild.
love to see it. This is from gamesindustry.biz, James Batchelor. It says, as solo developers' debut game has generated a solo developers. Okay. Pause. We don't know the developer. I love this. That's something that doesn't happen except for like in the indie space. You don't get AAA people where you're like, the only thing you know them by is this. But yeah,
it's like this individual is like the sleep token of the game space. That is a very specific joke that is not going to play to either one of you.
Nope.
But somebody out there respects that joke that I just made.
Someone laughed, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, I heard it from across the way.
Okay, back to the actual story. A solo developer's debut game has generated more than $1 million within hours of release. Balatro is a poker-themed roguelike deck-building game published by UK publisher PlayStack, who's killing it, by the way, who told gamesindustry.biz sales passed the $1 million mark after 8 hours when it released last week. It also reached profitability within 1 hour of being on sale. Meanwhile, the solo developer and artist behind Balatro, known only as Local Thunk, announced on Friday that his title had sold 250,000 copies across PC, PS5, Xbox, and Switch within its first 3 days. PlayStack also has reported this is the fastest selling game in the publisher's 8-year history. I'll put the link in the chat so you can read the rest of it. But like, I love this. This is much needed, like, good news, happy. I love the bit of mystery. I love that you have a game that's like selling gangbusters that you can get behind, that is a really good game if anybody hasn't played it yet. And I'm going to use this to segue into our topic of this show, which just happens to be perfect indie storms, of which Balatro is definitely one. We're sort of defining the perfect indie storm as a kind of bolt from the blue. No one was really expecting this to hit the way it did. It got into people's hands, and you just couldn't stop hearing about it. You couldn't stop playing it. I know that both of you talked about playing Balatro last week, and I was not there, and I loved it. That I was listening to Mike try to explain it, and it's not an easy game to explain. And
No.
like Janet was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be into this. And then like an hour later on her Twitter, she's got like a post of her like playing Balatro. I'm like, yeah, we got her.
Jana was definitely like during that entire explanation, like, get me the hell out of this conversation.
Well, to me, it was that classic, and I've had, a lot of people were like hyping up Balatro, and what I had said was like, sure, like, whether or not I like it or not, this explanation isn't going to necessarily tell me anything, which is kind of true about any game, really. Like, until your hands are on the sticks, you don't really know what you're gonna feel with it. So I'm like, I'm sorry that happened to you, or I'm glad. What's that meme? That text format. I was like, all right, yeah. I guess like going to the storm aspect of it, yeah, there's just kind of. I mean, it didn't necessarily come completely out of nowhere. Like, I know I had heard, rumblings of Balatro from y'all, talking about, oh, it seems like it's a really cool idea. The demo hit. And I feel like I kind of saw that from a few pockets. And then it just sort of surfaced, and I feel like everybody else was like, oh my God, this game has like a 94. Yeah, Metacritic is not everything, but like there's a 94 on Metacritic. Like that's what, like, it's no matter what your taste is in games, there's something to be said about a game that is just like beloved by almost everybody, where it's like,
Mhm.
even if you don't end up playing it or you don't end up enjoying it, it does make your head turn. And that's sort of like, I think, also representative of that perfect indie storm, like something where you kind of look up and everyone around you is into it and you're like, what's going on over here?
Yeah. It's also one of those really beautiful, like, grassroots sort of storms as well, because I think, if I'm not wrong, the rumbling for this game started to come from, like, indie creators and indie sort of content creators
Yeah.
and people who cover that sort of thing, and is now growing, snowballing into like the mainstream. So I just today saw that Game Informer has put out a review for Balatro, and
Nice.
it's so funny because I knew it was coming, because I was like, I was playing, and like they're on my friends list, so whenever they popped up on
Mm,
Steam, it like shows what they're playing. I'm like, haha, we got you guys. So like I knew something was coming, and then with that kind of attention, more people, like, it's always so surprising to me when like I'm talking to a group of people. Like this happened at the Game Awards when they're like, what indie should I play? And I was like, well, of course Cocoon. And they're like, what's Cocoon? Like it's
Yeah.
always so like I thought everybody knew about this
yeah.
until like a big outlet started talking about it. So just seeing that, and it got a 9.5. Like this is a wild, like, it is adding to that 94 Metacritic score. It's one of the best reviewed games of all time. It is a solo developer that no one knows. No one knows who this person is, and it's great. Um, I think the really cool thing about these sorts of perfect storms is that it's almost the exclusive realm of indies, because there is an element of they have to be kind of mysterious and maybe not mysterious, but like not unexpected. You hear a sequel to God of War is coming out and you're like, okay, this is likely to do well and to get attention. Um, but when you hear a thing like some solo developer is making a farming sim that's gonna be on the Switch or something, like, you don't expect Stardew Valley, you know what I mean? Like, everyone was playing that game, and I feel like that was one of my, like, first cognizant recognitions of, like, "Oh, the indie scene is really where we're gonna start seeing that these, like, perfect storm type scenarios." Is that just me?
I think one thing
No.
too is to just sort of add to what you mentioned, Jill, is it's unique to indies because like there's too much marketing money behind AAA for that to ever really truly be possible. Like we still talk about hidden gems in the AAA and AA space, as especially like in I guess would hindsight be the right word for it, or like kind of looking back, you might say, oh, Blur's hidden gem, even though like Blur probably had a lot of like magazine marketing at the time, and it's
Yeah.
I can't remember if that's EA or who that is, but it's like a big publisher game. It's a game that you can pick up in a retail store. Again, all things that are like big teams, big marketing money or whatever. So sure, we have like hidden gems in that sense, but you you can't be a hidden, like if with enough marketing, it's like, well, it's not hidden though. It's kind of like maybe underrated or maybe this other kind of language around it. But here, especially reading into like the articles that I looked at for Balatro were games radars exploring Balatro's hype, its ingenious twist on poker, and its mysterious creator by Sam Makovich. And then also there was another one from PC Gamers, Christopher Livingston, interviewing the creator and talking about the game. And one of the articles, I think it was the Games Radar one, mentioned the creator like not even ever really reaching that point where they were like sending out like, hey, play my game, like kind of emails. Like they have like other people that they worked with. Obviously, they have like a publisher and things like that. But it's like the marketing was just beginning from Balatro, but now there's all this organic viral marketing happening from creators and word of mouth and outlets, and the visibility on Steam from its high ratings and things like that, where usually that wouldn't be the case because you would have, like, again, the marketing dollars behind it, which also that's kind of ideal too. Like, there's nothing wrong with marketing your game. It's just this creator happened not to really like fully get around to that. And they're like, oh, I put out my game. And they're like, people played it. And wow. And then, and that really is just genuinely what happened. And it does feel like such a, not a rarity, but it doesn't happen that often. So when it does, it's like, oh my God, we're having one of those moments. It's happening now and we're living it.
Yeah, something I typically say quite a bit on the 6-1 indie side of things is true innovation lies within the indie scene. Like, I don't think you'd ever see the sequel to Poker drop from like Sony Santa Monica, um so yeah, it's really like if you have a good hook, it's and like just the right amount of people play it to begin with, the right amount of creators, whatever it may be, it's going to catch fire. And like, I think, Janet, maybe we mentioned this last week, but is this going to be 2024's Vampire Survivors, where like it just stands the test time throughout the year and like does like I'm going to make an early prediction that like this will win Game of the Year at DICE. I would say like it's going to be this year's Goose Game in terms of those awards and stuff. And yeah, I can't really see it slowing down anytime soon. It
Best
just seems
debut
like
indie at Game Award. I wrote it down already on my list.
There you
Well,
go,
there's
yeah.
games I'm thinking of. It's because I always forget, like especially debut. It's like you kind of forget who made what. Though debut is interesting too because operating under local thunk, which is like the name of the developer, quote unquote, or like the studio that this creator formed to be able to put their game out there. Like he mentions that he's made other games before, but he just has never like shown them. So it's kind of like that. It sort of reminds me of that thing with I forgot what hip hop magazine, if it's The Source or whoever, but they do like their freshman 15, but it's like artists that are already out, or like best debut artists of the Grammys. It's like a lot of times they already have projects, so that's always like a funky spot for that category. But yeah,
Well,
I
it's
feel like
also
that's potentially a lock.
same deal with oh my god,
Like
Neon White
yeah.
and
Yes.
Donut County, where like technically they were saying Neon White was like it was up for debut indie because
Yeah,
it was a
'cause
different studio
debut
name, but it was
studio,
still
yeah.
Ben's second game.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, like I can't really see it slowing down anytime soon, and for a very good reason. The game hits. I think like just so we don't get called out in the comments or anything like that. Like, yes, it does exist in the AAA side of things. I would argue Helldivers 2 is currently going through somewhat the same
Yeah.
or similar motion. Like, yes, it had PlayStation budget. It has like that first party push. It's been on PlayStation showcases. I don't think any of us really expected Helldivers 2 to hit as hard as it's hitting.
Yeah.
Which, hey, kudos to Arrowhead. But yeah, I think it is just more common. And I use the term common loosely because obviously this isn't a thing that happens every single year, every single day. But it's a more common occurrence in the indie scene, especially when you do look at, Jill, like what some of these games that you listed: Stardew, Valheim, Vampire Survivors, Lethal Company, Among Us, Hades, Celeste. It's easy to think of more indies off the top of your head that do make those waves.
Yeah. I think like if we are trying to think about what the ingredients are, like a perfect storm, like obviously you have some
We're mixing
element-
metaphors here, but all right.
You know what? I'll throw
Lightning in a bottle.
many.
Perfect
Yeah.
storm cake. Yeah.
I want my perfect storm cake, and I'm gonna eat it too. I think you need some element of unexpectedness. You need some. Obviously, the game has to be really engaging, and it's very interesting because we're gonna do predictions in a minute, but it is interesting to me that games of this ilk typically need to be like grab you quickly and
Yeah.
keep hold of you. So things that are like really heavily like narrative games usually don't hit on this level because you have to be invested and kind of go through that.
I think the closest you get is Slay the Spire last year, or not Slay the Spire, Slay the Princess last year, or
I was like, Slay the Spire, interesting.
definitely not a 2023 game. Yeah, Slay the Princess or In Stars of Time. I think that's like kind of the closest you'll get. Like those were definitely breakthrough narrative driven experiences, and most notably breakthrough narrative driven experiences that came out at a very flooded time in our
Yeah.
industry when it comes to releases and stuff. So like if it was a more open period, who knows, it could have gone even further. But
I think that's another ingredient in our storm cake here of it has to hit at like exactly the right time because like Slay the Princess, if it had hit when you don't have everything else coming out at that time, does that become the thing that everyone gets z- zoomed in on? um, there is an element of just like luck, having the right people look at it and accidentally stumbling across it and
Well,
sharing
I
it with their
I think a lot of
audience.
times too, like to expand on that, it's and I wouldn't say I hate to say this because I also stream and make YouTube. So it's not like I don't do video content, but ultimately, like, people don't really like reading articles. Like that just is a thing. There's not a lot of readers for like even a really popular site. Readership is not like off the wall, right? So I think a lot of it is too like that the virality of stream content and YouTube content of stuff that it's not just fun to play it, but it's fun to watch it be played because that definitely
Mhm.
is something that happened with like Balatro as well. And like I feel like outside of I mean Stardew obviously gets a lot of streams, but it is a little bit less of a like if you drop in on someone's Stardew stream and watch for 5 minutes, obviously we all come for different things, but it's not necessarily going to inherently have immediate action in the same way. But at the same time, that kind of cozy stream sector obviously has both a lot of potential and a lot of saturation. So it's kind of a mixed bag with Stardew. And I guess maybe you could argue Vampire Survivors is a bit busy to visually parse out, but they all had that kind of. A lot of them have that almost run nature or like who knows what's going to happen, like an unpredictability to it. An excitement in viewing it. Even Celeste too. There's a spectatorship to witnessing someone play Celeste.
Mhm.
That really I think again applies to all the games we listed except for Stardew. Stardew's kind of like I just have the heat. Like I don't know. Like you know what I mean? It's not again no shade to people that watch Stardew streams, but it just doesn't have the same kind of movement because it's of the genre of it.
Right.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's definitely an aspect as well.
And that made me think too, like Fall Guys. Like there is a
Yeah.
certain like y- percentage of these games that are streamlined in their scope. um, and action so that you can get in right away. You understand exactly what you're doing. Like having this be a roguelike poker game, most people are at least familiar with the idea of poker. You don't actually need to know anything about how to play poker, except that, like, that playing face cards are usually better than playing like a two. Um, yeah. So, again, I'm just really glad to see it. And looking forward, having made the ingredients for our cake, what do you think is going to come out of the oven as this next storm, Mike?
yeah, I have a few games listed, and I'm not gonna spend too much time on each, but I think I do have a reason for each. The first being Animal Well. I think Animal Well from the get go, it was first like in the bane of my existence. The way it was announced, it was one of those like 7 a.m. PlayStation blog things of like, hey, here's this really cool new game. Um, from that very moment, just like Ben is the developer's name, right? I forgot his
Sure,
name.
why not?
I think it's Ben. Just
Just
discussing a lot
put your
of.
hand over your mouth like this, and we can change it in
We'll dub it
post.
later. I'm so sorry. Um, just discussing a lot of like the late game kind of stuff. Like it feels very much like yeah, it's a hyper stylized 2D puzzle platformer, but a lot of the end game stuff starts to bring on like these near inspirations. So I think like a lot of the intrigue and mystery behind what the flow of that game is going to be at the end of a run, a completion, when you see the credits, so on and so forth. I think when that starts getting out there, people are going to start picking it up more and more. Kind of like in the same vein of maybe, and this is an extreme comparison, like a Doki Doki Literature Club,
Mm.
kind of, where people just start whispering about it, of like, no, you got to see this game through the end. Did you get this ending? Did you get that ending? I feel like it has potential there, and it helps that the game is stunning.
Yeah.
Like the game, I don't understand. It's like one of those video games I don't understand how video games, like this wobbly CRT trippy aesthetic, is so pleasing to the eye, especially when you are actually like going hands on with the game. Um, yeah, Janet, I know you before we started recording, you mentioned Animal Wells as well. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, this one I thought about putting down and I didn't ultimately because it's a Metroidvania, which I think Metroidvanias have friction by nature, so I
Mhm.
Yeah.
wonder how easily will people latch onto it? Because again, we're not talking about like what do we think is gonna hit. It's like what's gonna like rain down, upon us
Yeah.
culturally. And I'm not sure, but then I'm looking back at the footage, which also, Animal Well, Big Mode published, which is what Donkey's publishing.
Donkey. Yeah.
Like, so it has like a chunk of
It's got
of
firepower. Yeah.
what's the word, like kind of marketing budget and things. Like I've played it like at a show before and things like that. But also like it's this one's interesting because I guess it'll depend on how long it takes to reveal its intrigue. Because watching the trailers, I'm seeing like funky giant cat ghosts, like weird stuff going down. But having played it, I'm like, okay, like this is cute. Not to be too derisive, but it just didn't like in that quick demo like moment, it did not really reveal what is its sauce outside of its like visual appeal. So I'm curious in game, like what will that rollout of sauce be, and will it be enough to like move
Cover the
people
pizza.
despite being to cover the pizza. We'll just throw a lot of food metaphors around, but to move people in that way, because especially I think of again looking back over to the mainstream, how much I loved like Prince of Persia, that being a Metroidvania, that I think being like super cool, and yet people, it was one of those things where I feel like all of us that had played it were like right, and then everyone else was like, what's going on? Like I don't know. I think Metroidvanias, it's tough to get people out of bed for a Metroidvania sometimes. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's what it has going against it. Kind of similar to like the struggles of narrative games to pop in this specific way.
Sure.
But we'll see.
100%. What else you got there, Mike?
I think She Dreams Elsewhere has potential as well. I think kind of going back to what we were talking about with those narrative games, I think it might fall more in line with In Stars in Time. That could be because
Yeah.
it very much reminds me of the similar kind of gameplay, and just like moment to moment kind of narrative telling or storytelling and so on and so forth. But I think there is a small but mighty crowd very much waiting for that game
Yeah.
and are really loud about waiting for that game. So I think when it finally hits, if it hits at the right moment, if it does get like this one of these ID at Xbox spotlights or shows up at a PlayStation show or something like that, like or if Wanderbots picks it up, if Splattercat picks it up, if Admiral Baharu, I can never say his name, if like one of these bigger creators ends up streaming it and it really gets out there, I think it's going to definitely hit with a lot of folks. I think that has, again, depending on many factors, has that Undertale factor behind it, I think. I got another Crab's Treasure. I think this falls into where we were falling with Liza P. Obviously, the big elephant in the room is Elden Ring, but I think as folks are waiting for that DLC to drop, I think they're going to be looking like that crowd is definitely going to be looking for something to satiate the palate leading into June. And from what I played from another Crab's Treasure, it's doing all the right things. Like it is next to Liza P so far, it is my favorite non FromSoft Souls like game. Like it's doing all the right things, and that last trailer that they showed off, really impressive stuff.
Yeah.
Really doing some really cool narrative things, and like the voice acting, like that's something that was a big surprise.
Yeah.
So it's making it even more accessible or more approachable, I should say. That too, and the accessibility features, like the gun
The
thing went
gun.
Yeah.
quite viral when they announced that thing. So I think again, depending on the factors, could be something. Haunty, I think could get into that Gree kind of niche. I think
Mm.
Gree, granted, 2018 was it? It was 40 years ago, so I don't exactly remember what the vibe was back then. But I remember a lot of people like really giving Gree its praise. So
Yeah.
Haunty is giving off that same vibe. And Nine Souls as well. I feel like a lot of people are kind of sleeping on Nine Souls at the moment.
Yeah.
2D hand drawn action game. Think Sekiro. It's great. It's really great. And again, similar to another Crab's Treasure, it's going to fill that gap of the people waiting for Elden Ring and looking for just like a really gorgeous game to look at, and a really engaging moment to moment gameplay for an audience to pick up on.
I think for Nine Souls 2, I am very interested in seeing if this does become a perfect storm, because not only is it absolutely gorgeous, like beyond what it has any right to be,
Yeah,
and it plays like butter. I loved what I played of it. The developer Red Candle, um,
that too.
is also the developer behind like Devotion, and they've had a lot of fame just for being in bad situations in the past.
Yeah.
So I think that just the sparkle of their name will have a lot of people playing it, which could, catch fire to our bread loaf of Storm. So I'm
We're going
really
too far
intrigued to
now. We're
see.
right on the edge.
Yeah, I'm working really hard to think of all of the metaphors I can kind of squeeze in there.
Real quick, the other two I wrote down here, I don't think it's going to be like a perfect Storm situation, but at least in the horror
The
/
weirdos.
horror adjacent community,
Yeah.
the sickos like here, like me,
Sicko Storm.
the sicko Storm, normal fishing and mouthwashing, I think will really hit with the freaks.
Yeah.
Like me.
I could see normal fishing breaking
Normal
out of the
fishing,
freak
100%.
zone.
Normal
Yeah.
fishing
Just
for
because
sure could be more breakout.
I think we had all that like dredge energy from last year.
Exactly.
And they're kind of checking some similar boxes, even though dredge was like 2 pegs shy of like 2 notches down from like virality like that. Like people liked it, but then like, you kind of got deep into those conversations and people were kind of like, I mean, did you care to finish it though? And I'm like, how dare you ask me that question? Because I didn't finish a lot of things. All right, back off. But yeah, it was a little bit shy of that. But I think, I don't know, like there's something so appealing about weirding the fishing genre. And I think it has that zoomed in nature that we discussed of what often necessitates having that perfect storm is a level of hyper specificity that you don't usually get. Also, said that word right the second time. It's so hard to say that word.
I think also with normal fishing, and I don't want to get into it for spoiler's sake for people who didn't play that demo during Next Fest or whatever, but like it does a thing that another game does very well. And I think if that crowd picks it up, and again it does
Is it like an inscription nod or what's going on?
Maybe
nobody knows.
I cannot confirm nor deny, but yeah, if that kind of conversation starts happening, I could see it really snowballing.
Sure.
Mouthwashing though is for the sickos.
Yeah, that
Like
one.
that's not crowd. Yo.
That's not leaving like your Steam list. It's like you and like the 8 other people that reviewed it. That's like y'all are right there.
Listen, if something's gonna take out Balatro for my game of the year at the moment, it's definitely gonna be mouthwashing. That demo ruled.
Mouthwashing us of all of Mike's picks. Let's head over to Janet.
Yeah. All right. You want to know what's going to be hot in the streets and
I'm
seem
ready.
like you know things? Boom.
Janet
Pretend you
things.
predicted these.
I'm ready.
Tell your friends, and then you could just be whatever, right?
Still Janet's thunder.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm going with Cryptmaster, a game that I have talked about a gajillion times at this point, which is funny because it's not out yet. It's still just I don't know if the demo's still up yet, actually, for Cryptmaster or not, because it had a demo before. It is still up. Yeah, so this is in case you missed it, dungeon crawler, but you are typing. But unlike other typing games, it is not about the dexterity or speed with which you type, for the most part. You do a little bit with some combat, but that's about it. It's about discovering different like words and letters from like solving riddles, essentially. Like, mm-hmm. Like, what's in this box? And you can ask like some questions, and then like, so it kind of has this weird. It's full of nostalgia, and I think that's one of the pros going forward. It has a really striking art style, and I think the thing that could elevate it is really specific. It's a niche that I think some weirdos enjoy. Like, I'm a typing person, so I definitely think the typing people will come for this. Right. I also think let's zoom out. So societally, Wordle really hit. This kind of has true. A little bit of that Wordle energy in the way that you're guessing, because again, it's sort of you'll talk to the Cryptmaster guy and he'll be like, oh, like I'm holding an object, like you're also like, oh, can you lift it? And he'll talk about how heavy it is. So it has that kind of guessing nature. I think to that point too, I could see this popping off as a Twitch kind of game. I know I streamed it and my chat had a lot of fun trying to guess the answers. So I'm putting my cash down on Cryptmaster because it's not real money, so I could just put down whatever I want. That's my first pick.
Make it rain. I think
you lost all that money in Vegas.
Yeah. I gotta make it back. I'm going double or nothing, and then we do that again, and then we win. Then we get confident, and then we have to dig ourselves out of the hole. It's a tale as old as time.
Vegas.
Yeah, you win $2 on the scratch off, and you buy a $2 ticket, then you lose $2.
My favorite is feeling like I made money when I played with like a separate bit of money, but actually had already lost $20. So it's like I didn't just make $2; I'm still down like $38. Yeah. But anyway.
It's all just numbers, man.
Yeah.
I'm sort of with Janet on Cryptmaster because, like Balatro, it is not a game that it is a game kind of built on the structure of typing. It is more like just a puzzle action game. Like Balatro is not a poker game. It's just built upon the framework that is poker.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if this could hit at the right time, I think it's got a lot of the ingredients for a flapjack.
If you know the bones, the rest of the body will appear. I don't know. There's something there. My second pick is one that we also actually just talked about last week briefly. Arranger, a role puzzling adventure. Also, the way I pulled these picks is I just went through both my Steam wish list and then what's coming out this year, and I tried to pick the game that I thought had the most potential to like hit in this very specific way. So Arranger, it's a puzzle game. So you're like moving tiles around, and like that's kind of the mechanic. Like you're a character standing on a bunch of tiles. It's top down, and you're moving those tiles to do things like maybe attack, interact with like chess. Like you move to like a key, and then you move to like a lock. That kind of structure. I pulled this because again, it's very specific. I feel like you glance at it, you immediately know what's going on, what you're doing. It kind of seems, I don't know, a little bit cozy, a little bit charming. I don't think it has that streamability, virality that a lot of these other ones have. So this one's a riskier pick for me. But the other reason I pick it is because I feel like it could hit that like Loop Hero energy almost of like, this is an old looking game where you're kind of moving things around. We all enjoy doing that, don't we? So that's what I see in this game that I barely met like a week ago.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the creators are Carto creators.
Oh, is it?
It's good.
Furniture and Mattress LLC. I'm clicking on it now. I don't see anything else from them, at least on Steam. But that doesn't mean that
Similar
that's not
vibe,
true.
for sure.
Yeah, I'd have to look further in to see if like
now
they
I'm
like
gonna,
made.
Yeah,
go
ahead and host the show. I'm gonna Google.
Okay. Yeah. Feel free
Okay.
to check out
No,
if
Mike's
they've
got
done. Okay, great. If they've done other stuff.
I got it.
Okay, what's the answer?
Just this headline from Catherine Castle at Rock Paper Shotgun. Arranger, a role puzzling adventure, is the debut game from former Braid and Carto developers.
Okay,
and Ethereal, it is I think a writer of Carto.
Okay.
Oh, it's Nick Sutner. Oh, former PlayStation blog.
Okay.
Cool.
I like how your voice changed.
I got scared. I was like, what do I like? Do we know?
And you're like, oh,
like who is this person? Okay, cool. So some background / mixed pedigree there. I don't really pull anything too specific from that, but it is interesting in terms of I think. Well, it's funny because you mentioned it's like the writer, but like the art style and the vibe is kind of like familiar. And my last pick is I feel like, admittedly, this is just me looking at Stardew Valley and saying who could be the next Stardew when I don't think there is a next Stardew. I don't know, maybe I don't even know if it's that Haunted Chocolatier game. I don't know what. I don't think anything's Stardew. But let's pretend for a second. I feel like one of the Sims could pop off, like Sim style games. And for this, I look at Paralives, which is like we can be the Sims but better.
Mm-hmm.
Tall Order, we'll see. I think they're slated now for 2025. So I don't think we're going to see that game for a long time. And then I threw it onto the pile just because it's one that I've seen a lot, but I see it a lot because I follow the account because Sarah runs it. So like obviously 8 million caveats to that. Like I like Sarah Pozorski as a person. So this is not me like trying to do anything, but admittedly Fields of Mystery does look good. And it does have, I feel like the people who are, there's a sector of gamers that are chasing the high of Harvest Moon / what's the spinoff one? Story of Seasons. Yeah. And they've been dissatisfied for years. And maybe they don't even know they're dissatisfied, but all I hear is their dissatisfaction. Yeah. So I don't
before they come after you, I'm going to say that's we all know that that's the actual developer and it's not the spinoff. So don't come after us.
Yeah, well, that's why I named both, right? Because there's like Harvest Moon OG and then there's like Story of Seasons. I mean, there's even, because there's still Harvest Moon now, right? It's just a different team or something. Yeah. It doesn't matter because all of them are not good enough for that community. It's just true. Like that's like all you hear about it. It's like
part of why Stardew got so big because so many people wanted it, and that's what it was.
So the reason I point to both these two titles is, and again, lots of people make claims. Do they deliver? I don't know. I mean, everyone's trying to, right? That's the point of making a project like this. But both of them are trying to look at a niche and say, we think we can do this better. Will they deliver? I don't know, but there is hype around both of those, so that's kind of why I point to those. But if I knew more, I think of the sim sector, maybe I could pull, the power washing simulator of indies. But those are the two that stand out to me from that sector.
Thinking about Sims, and I guess it's sort of a sim. When it hits 1.0, do you think Slime Rancher 2 has that potential?
I don't think so because I think it'll only be as big as Slime Rancher 1, which people love Slime Rancher 1. I mean, it
Yeah.
has again, if
Cult
you
classic.
we talk about, like,
Yeah,
the
sure.
mainstreaming of indies, like, you're a mainstream indie if Fan Gamer pumps out your merch, you know, and that's, like, that's Slime
Sure.
Rancher, you know, like, it's got that level of clout and cachet, but also for some reason, the sequels to indies never quite, like, get the hype that they did that first time out, usually, for the most
Fair.
part. There's some
We'll see how Hades
caveats,
2
but yeah, yeah, yeah.
answers that.
I'm so excited for Hades too, so I don't know about that, but,
Yeah,
like,
I think I could see Hades 2. I could see
I
Hades
am
2 or Hollow Knight, I think
But
is another famous, like, very
yeah,
yeah.
that's
hyped
fair.
I
sequel.
think very specific reason for that being as hype as it is, though.
With Hades 1, it really only popped off when 1.0 hit, right? Like,
Yeah,
I know people, like,
Yeah.
I would say
enjoyed early
so.
access, but yeah. I'm curious what early access looks like for Hades 2.
We'll
Yeah,
see.
it'll
They're
be
doing it that this year at some point.
it'll be
So
interesting
Yeah.
because it'll have way more eyes on it, and I don't know if
Oh my
that'll
god, yeah.
be in service or in detriment to, like, the through line of hype for that game.
mhm,
Yeah.
So we'll see.
yeah. It's gonna be so interesting to see. But if you really wanna know what's happening, that's gonna be the storm hitting this year. Take a
Another
look
bold
at
claim.
Thank Goodness You're Here. I 100% believe that this is gonna be one of those games that, like, maybe people will remember the sort of cartoon lookingness of it, but then they'll play it and it's like, it's got a lot of heart. It's one of those games that you're gonna know exactly what to do immediately. There are jokes built into everything, and they're smart and dumb at the same time. It is so funny. It's gonna be a game that's gonna be really easy to stream. It it's got accents. That's always helpful. And it is just, I think, going to take off if it hits at a good time for it to hit. Like, I think all the ingredients are there. I had such a good time playing it. It is a game that you pick up and you don't stop playing because you're like, okay, and now I just need to solve this part, and now I need to put a cigarette in this fish mouth, and now there's
As you
like
do.
a baker rivalry where someone's gonna die. Like anything could happen at any moment, and there are gonna be moments in this game that are just like, I can't believe how dumb, hilarious, heartwarming that was all at the same time. So that's my front runner for this year's Storm. I also want to shout out Hermit and Pig just because that has potential to be really relatable because it's just like, yeah, I want to be a hermit in the middle of the woods, not talking to people, and my social anxiety is the battle I need to deal with throughout. Um, and then also, it came out in early access. It got a lot of talk. Shadows of Doubt is said to be coming out this year. It's supposed to only be in early access for a year. We'll see if that happens. Um, but I I've not gone a single year in this industry or being a gamer where there hasn't been someone who's like, "What if we just had an entire world of things to do?" Like, everything is involved with everything, and you can go into every behind every door, in every locker, like, you'll be able to find and piece together everything on your own, and that's 100% what this game is. I love it. It had things happen and come together in really unexpected ways in the sort of like the way I really appreciate with games is like, I wonder if this does anything. And then it does. And it rewards you for being curious about the world they're setting up. Um, so yeah, I'm really interested to see what tweaks get put on this game, how they keep the sort of narrative up and keep you engaged throughout the process. And if they do manage to do that, this could be a really big hit.
Yeah. Shadows of Doubt, Showcase alum from March. And yeah, one of the definitely like not my kind of game on paper, but even like reviewing the original submission back in like January, February of 2023, something that was like immediately just like impressive right off the bat. And yeah, they really are building something special. So I think like again, depending on the many factors we talked about, I think 1.0 could be quite the hit for them, especially if they end up like on Switch or consoles, like if they decide to port or have the budget to port.
Yeah. And even though we are leaving topic of the show, we're not leaving Balatro because under
Never.
games we've been playing, it's literally the first game on everybody's list. Balatro. I even had people come in through the bay, like industry friends come through, and you sit down, and when you're talking with people in this industry, one of the questions you always go to is like, so what are you playing? We talked about Balatro for like an hour. It is so unbelievably hard to put down. The things that you are discovering, the things you don't know you're going to discover until you get there, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot uh wait to put this into action. So just to kick things off, my go-to hand now. I got a Joker that allows reds to be a suit and blacks to be a suit.
Oh,
Yeah. So if you put
interesting.
that alongside, if you get a like +4 multiplier for hearts, now every single red card gets a +4. And if you get that same card for spades or clubs, now every single card you play is +4 no matter what. And then you put on another Joker that's like multiplier or plus chips for playing the same card hand over and over again and playing a flush over and over again. And you start upgrading your flush. Yeah. I just had my top hand was at like 125,000 at this point, and I was
Hell
like,
yeah.
I'm so excited to have gotten that. I got through 5. I've won 5 rounds, so I unlocked challenges, and I'm very excited about that. And things just keep, I think part of the secret sauce here is things keep unlocking to the point where I'm like, oh, well, now I have to play another round because I've unlocked challenges and I have to see what that is. Janet, what's your best hand been so far?
Oh man, it's probably like not shit compared to that. Let's see, what are we looking at here? Best hand, probably like coming in at a hot 18K.
Yeah.
Some maybe a little high. I'm trying to find. I had a good run before, and I'm wondering, was that really my best hand there?
Like, it's
yeah, it
always
was. Yeah, it's not very good. It's 18,000, but
I believe in
I'm
you.
still having fun.
What's your
fuck
go-to
you, Jill.
strategy?
Anyway,
You jump in. What deck do you like? Like, which of the backings do you pick?
yeah. So I think right now, I just unlocked the third deck. So to also kind of zoom out, I guess. Not that Mike didn't have a great explanation of the game last week.
Please reiterate my lecture word for word right now.
Totally had it committed it all to memory. Yeah, essentially it is poker, which I didn't know like I mean, I don't know like how to play poker, and I don't know like the order of the even like okay, what comes after 10, it's jack, but I don't know that. So like that's the only thing I had to write down, which is like even though the order they put the cards automatically in order by default based on like the number and the suit and all of that. So the cards are already sorted for you in your hand, which helps a lot. But I just jotted that down just to like know like what do I need? Like if I'm going for, a play that's like a straight, like an order, you need 10, jack, king and queen? Is that the right order?
Yep.
And then eights
Queen,
or whatever,
king.
right? Sure, that way.
That's why you lost $40.
Yeah, that's why I lost $40. I didn't play poker during that time. I saw a poker machine and I was like, could I play this since I've played Balatro? No, you can't. Yes, actually you can't.
You literally can.
You can, but like not the machine I played on, because they're like, what kind of poker do you want to play? I'm like, what do you mean? Anyway, I'm like,
no.
I'm like, is there a
No,
Balatro button I can hit? Even though apparently I'm not that good at that game either. But anyway, so and on this
time out, just like a quick like side thing. Are we going to get to the point where there is going to be like an actual Balatro like cabinet? You think?
Yes.
I wish, even though I know that's
digital poker machine.
I know that would be
I would go
bad
play
because
it.
gambling addictions and stuff. So I don't really want to,
Sure.
you know what I mean?
But like similar to like how Gungeon has like their arcade cabinet now.
Yeah, I would do it.
No, I don't think there would be, even though that, and I think people are too drunk to. Even though Balatro's like
there's a lot of poker adjacent things in like children arcades. Like I grew up. The reason I know poker so well is because child Mike used to play a game called Papa Ball.
I could
in
see
Fantasy Island and Long Beach Island.
I could see them
when I
doing
was,
an
like, 5 years
arcade.
old.
I could see them doing an arcade cabinet, but I don't think they'd do like a gambling cabinet.
Sure.
Like,
That's what I mean. Just like an arcade cabinet. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that happening. It'd be fun. Anyway, so
Yeah, right.
not that they're
Anyways.
I think hurting for success at this point, but What I want is the way you can bet on sports. I want fantasy critics to hit the casinos.
Oh,
Like let
dude.
me put it up for real. But
What was it, DraftKings? Come on.
oh god. Anyway, so yeah. What's nice about this from a like novice perspective, and that's the thing. You know, a lot of people sell things as like, oh, this is like it's easy, it's approachable. I'm like, yeah, that's what y'all said about Elden Ring. So like, I don't really believe people at this point in my life. I'm like, let me see. Let me
It's the
see
most
what you mean.
approachable of the Souls from soft games.
I don't agree with
Yeah.
that either, though. Is the thing.
Really? What do you
Yeah.
think? Off topic. What do you think?
I think Demon Souls is more approachable because you just walk down the
Interesting.
hallway. Like you can go anywhere. I'm like, well, guess what? Now I'm fucked in every direction. So how does the fuck does this help
I think
me?
that's the problem.
Anyway, back to Balatro and like its structure. Yeah, one thing that really helps besides them putting the cards in order, they also have on the side you can see what types of hands you can play and what their like value is, and then from there, like once you kind of get used to that structure, you can kind of start to invoke your own strategies. And I will say there's an aspect of like somewhat memorizing the kinds of hands you can play, even though you can always look back and see like this is a straight, this is a flush. You need to be able to also look at your hand and like make decisions. And that was the biggest initial hurdle I had with the game of just like, okay, well, like, what should I do? Oh no, you have this. And like my chat helped me a lot with that. And they kind of like backseat played a lot of my hands at first. And then playing on my own, I'm like, okay, now it's time for me to try to figure it out. So this is my long-winded, explanation to get back to your question, Jill, which is like, what is your go-to hand? I feel like too, I lean too heavily on like, I get caught up on like, I want this kind of play. And then I start running low on discards. But I do the straight a lot. I've actually been hitting a lot of full houses lately. So I'm leaning heavier into the full house. When things go bad, I'll just do a 2-pair. And what I think is really cool about this game that you like touched on, Jill, is the fact that one of the things that I feel like makes it so that you can get lost in a game, even a game that doesn't have like an official end, because it's just like a rogue game. So you're just like playing it for fun. Same with like, if you're doing Fortnite Battle Royale, you're hitting the same thing. For me, it's the fact that it is different every time because like you said, you're discovering things, you're getting new. All the cards that you can like pick up are either being added to your deck or modifying. So like you might add a joker and like, you might have a joker that, adds an extra hand each time you play a round or something like that, or each time you get through like a kind of a battle or a challenge, essentially is kind of how the game is structured. So what I like about that is it invites new strategies and also sometimes forces you to come up with a new strategy because things are a little bit different. And that's the same for like each sort of thing you go through will have like a point that you have to hit, like a number of points, but some of them also have like stipulations. Like I had an incredible run on the road to Vegas, funnily enough, where I was like, wow, I'm doing so good. Like I felt like I had like the perfect storm of the kinds of modifiers. And at this time, I don't fully remember like what all of them did, but I was like getting wild combos, flying through everything. And I got caught up because eventually I hit a challenge that was I forgot how many points I had to hit, but I had to do it all in one hand.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't do that. I was like, so it's like, but at the same time, I think it allows space for like you to get knocked on your ass and also you to be OP. And for me, like I love, I forgot if I talked about it on this show or a different show, but like my go-to joke is like, you'll never hear me complain a game's too easy because I love being OP in games. I love being able to grind my way to be one-hit kills. Not a problem to me. I'm not mad at it. It's like some people be like, oh, I'm kind of bored though. I want the challenge. I'm like, I want to be able to work my way into efficiency. That is my power fantasy is efficiency and time management. That's what I want. And this has both of that. And I think that's really what kind of gives it that secret sauce where no matter how you want to play, like you're going to find something that's going to satiate you or something to latch onto. And also ways to like, I think the cards that modify the play help bring you into thinking in different strategic ways without just being like, you have to have like this big brain moment of coming up with this really unique. I mean, I'm sure the higher level players, like Jill, you're out here pulling 100K. Like I'm sure you're like operating on like
there are people who are
a
pulling
deeper
like
level,
$1 million hands. Those are the
Jill
people who are
Moneybags
really
Grote
thinking.
over here.
Jill can like fucking. She's like, I don't have to check. Also, too, you can check the deck as well in this game. So like, you can kind of, you don't have to count the cards. Like you can see like if you're looking for, oh, I just need an 8 or I need another pair. well, how many 8s do I have? Like, do I want to discard the 8? You know, like you can kind of, there's a lot of tools to help you strategize in this, which I think is what makes it so user friendly. And yeah, you can just get these like really rad combos. But then at the same time, like the game like pushes against that too, because it'll like be like, oh, you were doing it, you were playing one certain way. And now all of a sudden, ooh, but what if every card you played last round was debuffed? And I'm like, oh my God, no, I played so many good cards. And now suddenly it's a problem. So it really just keeps you on your toes. And the time just flies by doing these runs. Like I'll pick up a run and I'll be playing for like half an hour plus. And like you just don't even notice that you played. I've been doing like one run a night and kind of keeping it at that. So I'm not up crazy late. And yeah, it's a fun time.
You agree with that, Mike? He comes on here and he's like, I hate it.
It's awful, despicable, complete 180. No, it hurts so much that I just have not had time to like play video games just because I've been so into the showcase cycle. Because all I want to do is lay in bed and play Balatro. That's all I want to do.
That's what you're doing on this street. Like the showcase is like playing and saying the thing, and
yeah, I still at the point where I haven't beaten a run yet, which also kills me.
Same. I was so close yesterday.
I was so close multiple times. It drives me nuts. But yeah, no, it's just like it is, going back, not to use this term again, but like it is the perfect storm of just a fantastic gameplay loop and just really intelligent mechanics. And yeah, it is, when you're trying to explain it on paper, it is something that is so overbearing, especially when you start getting into like the spectral cards, the jokers, the tags, the celestial cards,
earning
all this
interest
good stuff.
Was something that took me so long to know that it existed. I'm
vouchers, like there's just so much happening, and I'm still surprised that because there's so much happening, it's just catching everybody by storm. Like I haven't heard one person who's tried it yet that says like, nah, it's not for me. Not my kind of game. Like I'm not a deck builder kind of person. Yes, I love poker. I grew up with poker. Used to have poker nights in high school every week.
Why were you 37 years old in high school? You're like having the guys over for poker.
Just a cigar.
Chain smoking cigarettes. Yeah. Just
so yeah, the poker aspect obviously was very appealing just from the get-go of like first learning about the game, like last summer or whenever they had that first demo dropped. But yeah, I'm not a deck builder, but like the deck building mechanic of like destroying cards and adding new cards and like adding buffed cards and really getting into the nitty gritty of like, okay, like after the first round, the first small, large, and boss blinds, like, okay, is this a flush run? Is this a straight run? Where am I leaning? And like that keen strategy of like knowing when to lean in and knowing when to back out and shift. Like I remember I was one of my big runs where I was like literally like $2,000 away from completing a run. I was initially going for a straight run because I had jokers that like allowed you to skip in the sequence and also build a straight with 4, which is fantastic.
Oh man.
But I also had a joker early on. I forgot what it's called, but it's the pants joker that essentially every time you play
I had that
pair,
pants one for a while too.
Every time you play a pair, it adds the multiplier. So like my pairs were dropping like 30K like towards the end. So I just started like really leaning into pairs like mid run. Yeah, man, it's just like it's wild that like a poker roguelike is just again the perfect storm. Like it just works, and it shouldn't work, but I think it's just to the credit of Local Thunk, like knowing how to design a game super damn well. And I like the game very much celebrating, we're celebrating the mechanics and like the gameplay loop, but like even just like the aesthetic and like the jokers talking to you, the music,
the little CRT filter,
CRT like vaporwave vibe. I think that adds to it. Yeah, you could take off. I think if this looked like Microsoft Solitaire, like maybe wouldn't have like been super appealing to folks, but because they actually took time to really flesh out the aesthetic of the game and the game's personality, I think that's what is really grabbing folks as well. And keeping them in.
It's just intensely legible too. Like I like the CRT filter for the aesthetic. I take it off when I play on Steam Deck because it's too like I can't see that well. Like I've worn glasses my whole life, so I'm like, I'm like, what is this? A little small, So I take it off for that reason. I'm like, I have to make it a little like just 10% less cool than it was before. But
I'm also at the point where I'm playing at full speed and cards are just.
I'm gonna finally up the speed because people were like, I filmed all jankily, like just off my phone, like the gameplay or whatever of like one of my hands. and someone's like, oh, you got to put that on like 2x or 3x speed, and I'm like, what's the rush? And now I'm like, I wouldn't mind just a little bit faster. Anyway,
It's good.
But one thing I want to shout out, I know we have obviously other games we want to highlight for what we've been playing, but I think one of the things that works for me with this game is that it's a deck builder where you don't really have to deck build if you don't want to.
No.
And that's not something I was expecting going into this, because, you know, inherently, if you are deck building, you are, like you mentioned, getting cards, maybe destroying cards, like you don't have to do. I didn't start doing that until like literally yesterday, like hours into playing, because I had only been using, again, there's a bunch of different modifiers, and I think you can get lost in like the jargon if you've never played it. But there's like cards like celestial cards that are like do things like okay, 2 pair is now worth double what it was before, like you get double the points, and it works like that for all the different kind of hands and things. And then there's like other cards that do other things. There's joker cards that are essentially those kind of buffs and debuffs that can, you know, add multipliers or like change the whatever, you know. But I didn't start like opening the packs that are just pretty much regular cards. I mean, some of them have like, oh, it gets extra money or like other things, but they're essentially just cards that you're putting into the deck. I didn't start doing any of that until like really recently. And I was totally like getting far, having fun, figuring things out. Like, and I think that's one thing that sort of helps with this. There's another game that I was playing that had a similar, like, oh, Helldivers, even, you know, looking at the AAA space, where I'm like, this is a shooter where you don't have to shoot. And that's kind of what's cool about it. Like, you can just call down airstrikes and things. And obviously you still can do that, and people that are really good at it can probably do both. But I think Balatro is a game that has a lot of complexity, but can be played very easily from the floor. And as someone that lives in the fucking basement of card strategy, I'm like, yeah, I'm getting it, and I'm having fun, and I'm learning more. And, you know, I don't know if I'll have Jill's, you know, $8 million hand that she's just like waving in front of everybody, like, what was your highest score after I name? You're like, oh, I scored like 30K off one hand. What about you? I'm like, oh, like 10? Like, I don't know. Anyway, but I'm just giving you shit. Yeah.
Do y'all tend to throw away runs just purely because like you find a joker in the store that you haven't discovered yet, so you have to discover it?
There are definitely like I go from like, okay, this is going to be a win run to a like, this is going to be a discover
run.
joker run.
Yeah.
See, for me, all the runs are the same because I haven't won yet. So I'm like, this is just another run. I will say though, eventually I want to do that. Like at this point, because again, another layer to, if you're looking for more structure, like chasing some form of completion, there's like unlocking extra decks and getting, you know, you can get those things from, there's different like goals to unlock it, like discover X amount of cards, or, you know, win a run with it. Again, there are different ways to like unlock things. So one of them is just discovering all of the items that exist like in the game. So that's why you would end up doing that. But so far I'm leaning only into stuff that would help me because I haven't won yet. Once I get more wins, I think then I might just start picking up things just to kind of like experiment with them or unlock them or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. This game also has, I think it's just in our nature that this game has a Pokedex to complete that speaks to a lot of people. And this game, to some extent, and yes, maybe it's a little bit of a stretch to use this comparison, the game has Smash Brothers Melee's event mode, where it's like, okay, do this thing and you will unlock this new Joker.
Yeah. I know I said one last thing like 8 things ago, but I think the actual last
Balatro's
thing.
life, it's okay.
Yeah. I think the actual last thing to point out, at least for this conversation, I'm sure we'll talk about this game other times in other episodes, but
every week
after you, the Balatro update, the road to victory, featuring me and Mike, just struggling. But another cool thing is when you end a game, it, you know, gives you your stats like best hand, most played hand, all your little analytics, what defeated you, how high, whatever. And at the bottom, there's also a seed with a code, and that allows people to play basically the game that you just played, essentially. Like I haven't done it, so I don't know if either of you have experimented with the seed at all and like compared your stats to other people. But
you essentially pull the same jokers and the same stores, pretty much. I haven't messed with it either because I want to unlock my Steam achievements, and it locks you out of the Steam achievements or trophies or anything like that. So I haven't messed with it too much. But yeah, if you do have like, let's say for example, that run that like I was $2,000 away from, and I knew at the end of that, like let's say I think that was the run where I transitioned from like being a straight run to being a 2-pair run or a pair run. If I use that seed like straight from the get-go, I'd be like, okay, no, I'm going to focus only on pairs and really beef up my pairs because I know that if I like towards round, I know it's weird.
It
Towards
was such a strange sentence, you know. I
I
just
know.
want to beef up my pairs.
I just want to beef up my pairs, man.
You know.
Ante 6, like the pairs were rocking like 25 to 30K.
Yeah.
If I was leaning into the pairs to begin with at Ante 1 straight off the bat, that could have easily been doubled, tripled, and I could have beaten the run.
I will say though, as much as I've posted like a couple of my game over screens to be like, oh, like I lost, or look how far I got, and it has a seed number there. I'm not gonna lie, and I don't mind if you guys do this. It's fine. It's part of the game. It's all fun. I have this fear of like someone running the seed and being like, I didn't end it super well. I just know, because I have like a big enough following that I'm like, someone's gonna punch this in and be like, this fucking dumb bitch didn't look what I did with this. look what happens when a real gamer gets their hand on this run. Like, I'm so
there
afraid.
are guides out there already of like, yeah, here are like some of the best seeds and like what you should do.
Yeah. So anyway,
which is wild.
Don't put me on that Summer Jam screen, please. Another joke that only a few people will get, but.
So after we should just rename this episode the Balatro episode. Really,
the last IndieCast was it's Balatro, bitch. Except it's Balatro Beach because I didn't want to put a cuss out there.
Makes sense. We don't want to put a cuss out there.
No cuss.
Other games we've been playing include I played Minami Lane for I had played a little bit of the demo, but I played it for much longer for impressions up on the site. You can check it out. This is 100% the game that I needed yesterday. You know, sometimes a game just hits you at the exact right time, and it was my little cupcake of a perfect storm, you know? It for anyone who doesn't know, this is sort of a management sim cozy game. It's more to me like a puzzler than really a management game. It is relaxing and laid back, but gives you enough to keep on your mind to sort of keep you engaged, so that it's got a really great loop. You are given a street, which is yours to manage, usually starting out with like one building. And then you can like put in a restaurant and get more money, and with the more money you can put in more people, and you are usually given some sort of objective, like you need this many people to exist in this space, or you need to make sure they are such and such happy. And it is just a fun time. I got to the point where I was doing like the cat, I had unlocked cats that come through, and you get to pet them, and it's part of the like objective to pet them, and I think it's like to pet 20 different cats, and by the time I was done I'd pet like 40. I was so good with
You're just killing it
petting
with these games this week
here, man.
Yeah. And I did play this a little bit on stream too, and it's funny how like for wholesome games I have a tendency to make them not wholesome, so I just like yell at the little people like, what do you mean there are too many noodles? That's a perfect ramen shop. But yeah, it's a really fun game that just builds on itself. If you need like a ray of sunshine in your life, this is a great one to pick up and to check out.
Have you played this on Steam Deck at all?
I have not.
Okay.
I don't know if it plays well, but I suspect that it probably would. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't play on Steam Deck well.
Because this was on my list of games I was interested in checking out, so
yeah,
it's slightly higher now. If that's any, if that's any like vindication. But yeah,
you
it seems
played.
Cool.
It seems another Ray of Sunshine game, Janet. What you got there?
Yeah, I played Garden Life, a cozy simulator, which, funnily enough, I think this game only has this name on Steam. I think everywhere else it's just called Garden Life. I guess they're just like trying to hit the SEO of Steam, which like I respect the hustle. Like, get your bag. Yeah, this is it's super solid. I'm pretty early into it. I want to say I played like an hour, if that. So not too many complaints, but also just kind of early on. What it is, it's a garden simulator, basically. With a fairly strong narrative trapping. I do think it. Oh my gosh! Hello. Yeah. Exactly. It's so cute. Okay. Yeah, it's a little garden game with a bit of a story. The simulation aspect isn't ridiculously in depth at this point, which I think is kind of fine. I think they strike a good in between of like doing things is fairly easy, like planting your seeds, watering your plants. They kind of roll out. They have a nice like tool wheel of things. And there's some quest lines that you have as well. Like again, I'm pretty early, but it'll be something like, oh, I'm helping. What's the word when you, I don't know, be the florist for? I know what catering is for flower people. Like I'm not sure what that word would be. Yeah, but like that would, you gotta know if there's a word for that. Like where you're not the caterer, but the florist, I guess.
Floral arrangement. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
like
florist.
she's like, oh, I'm the
Florist is
florist for this wedding. Like I need, these kind of bouquets, and you can like, clip the flowers from your garden and then put them in a little mailbox that they like pick it up in. So stuff like that. There's some funky narrative stuff going on where fairly early on, apparently the person that like you're taking over this like garden space, and it's like, oh yeah, like the person who had this before, like they died. And tell me why like the ghost pulls up to the garden like somewhat early into the playthrough. I'm like, oh, like, so I don't know. Again, I don't know how in depth or
it's that kind of cozy game.
Yeah, I don't know how fire that narrative is going to actually end up being, but I am enjoying just like the general structure. You can go to town. There's like someone that can sell different seeds to you, and also like garden decorations. There's like a frog who has like a little wizard hat on, things like that. Exactly. And there's a cat where you can pet the cat, of course. What impressed me though was like the cat has multiple types of meows that it does, which I'm like, that's cool. So like there are those pockets of cool detail moments that really is what basically when it comes to like simulators like this, anyone that plays this knows you are looking for both detail and quality of life where it matters, and you want to have like that right in between for both of those where there is enough of that repetition to give you something to do that feels chill, but not so much where you're like, oh my god, it is like a pain in the ass to do anything in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And so far in this early time, I feel like Garden Life of Cozy Simulator is hitting that good sweet spot. Visually, it's very striking. I do think it maybe like that takes a lot to run, but like double check the PC specs because I kind of had to fuss with it a bit since I was also streaming off the same computer. I think playing it separate from that will be a little bit chiller. But yeah, I liked it, enjoyed my time, had very few complaints, so I do want to pursue this a bit more, but throw it onto the other simulator pyre because simulators are so like in depth that I'm like, I'm not sure when I want to set aside time to really dig in, but yeah, enjoying it so far.
I love it. Maybe if you need a cozy week, this is a good one for it. Other things that I want to shout out, just because I missed last week, these sort of came in through the last week as well. I did talk a little bit about Caves of Lore a couple of episodes ago. I jumped into that game. I mean, the weird thing is I jumped into this game on mobile and then later asked for a code for Steam. I like it better on mobile. Like that is such a bizarre thing. It is a crunchy kind of D&D inspired adventure game. It is one of those games that is again rewards what happens if I do this? What happens? And then something happens. So like one of my most just ridiculous and fun interaction with this game is that for some reason when I killed a monster, I got loot as you do, and along with the loot came like an empty metal bucket. I was like, what? A metal bucket? Like I guess I'll sell this when I get to a store or something. Then I got to a town, and like you do, I went around petting all the animals because that was fun, and they made silly noises.
Nice.
When I pet the cow, the interact button popped up with like the bucket next to it. I'm like, what? So I hit the bucket interact. It milked the cow. So now I have a bucket full of milk. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I walked into the store. The store has a bodega cat, as one should. I interacted with the cat because, of course, I wanted to pet the cat. The cat interaction button had the milk-filled pail next to it. I clicked it. The cat fell in love with me and came into my inventory, is now following me around.
That's so cool. I'm telling you right
now. And I have an empty bucket because he drank the milk.
I'm not even joking. It sounds like I am because I'm so dramatic. But like people are like, oh, you're joking all the time. I'm like, I'm just really dramatic, actually. Your description of that sequence sounds so much better than so many games. Like this has shot up. I bought this game off of the conversation we had 2 weeks ago, where I'm like, hell yeah. But then of course, like any gamer, I didn't play the game, but it's sitting there.
Of course.
But it's in your collection.
Yeah. And then tell me why my dumbass is like, oh, you like it more on phone? Maybe I should buy it there too.
I kind of want to encourage you to do that, because it's so easy when you're like watching TV or something and like you're just clicking around. It's so good.
Fuck
do
it.
it.
It's $8. Why not?
Yeah.
Also, there's like when it comes to the App Store, like I'm on iPhone, everyone has some type of storefront. Because they take a while to charge you, it's kind of like maybe by the time they hit me up, I'll like
It's
the
free
budget
this
will
week.
be the budget will be like evened out. Or should I try it on the Steam Deck first? Because I have it on Steam Deck.
Just do it. Just do it.
Do it.
It doesn't like
everybody put on their hoods.
Yeah.
Do it.
I'm in the same boat right now. Like because the game very much reminds me, not gameplay, but like visuals and whatever. But with Loop Hero, I have Loop Hero on Switch. That was my original playthrough of Loop Hero. And then like I got my Steam Deck. I was like, I want to rebuild my indie collection on Steam, and like just how I have my Steam Deck be my indie kind of like platform. And listen, like Loop Hero now, I think in a couple weeks coming to mobile. Am I gonna buy Loop Hero on mobile now? You're goddamn right I am. It's a perfect mobile game.
All right, I got it on the phone. So
yeah, get it.
There we go. It's loading now. It's too late to cancel
on your phone. You can do it. You're having trouble walking around. You need something to have on you at all times.
Well, I was just reminded that Spiritfall also just hit 1.0, so that's gonna be my spontaneous purchase tonight.
Yeah.
We should have one spontaneous purchase for a show. Like just
I'm glad that I could like get people influenced, perhaps badly, but it's a great game. So
quick little side shout out. I'm on the Minami Lane Steam page. Jenny is on.
I know. I saw Jenny on there. Yeah,
it's so good. Yeah, and then I also want to shout out Inculinati, which I have been involved with this game since it like kickstarted. It's been years. They finally came out to 1.0 release, and game is good. You like a strategy game? You like a medieval manuscript aesthetic? Go for it.
I think too. It's I played this game 1 or 2 years ago for my Best of Watch series back when it was early access, because it was early access but already on like Xbox, I think. Like probably, I don't know if it was via Game Pass or not. I think it was. Yeah, it's also like pretty simple to understand. So like I found it very approachable as someone that doesn't do like a lot of strategy games, or still kind of growing in that strategy genre. Yeah, that's basically it. But I just wanted to add that it's fairly simple to understand. So I think, especially because it is on Game Pass now, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, so I'd say like just try. You don't like it, just delete it. Like I think you'll know pretty quickly if you like it, and it does not take long to understand. Like it is very palatable in terms of figuring it out.
And good humor, good strategy, good humor. I like it.
It's cute.
Good times, great oldies.
And with that, that's the end of this week's council. Thank you to my co-hosts for coming on and talking about Balatro for an hour and a half. But thank you to everybody else coming in, watching. I hear stories of people who are like, I saw this part, this really resonated with me. I can't wait to finish this section. Like, I really appreciate hearing that kind of thing. I really appreciate y'all coming in and showing support. I love all the fans of the Dark Pedestal whenever they pop up and do their own chaotic show. Thank you so much. We love having you here. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google until about April, when Google Podcasts goes the way of the dodo. I feel like Mike wants to say something. Mike?
You can finish your wrap up first.
Okay. And the Indie Council does have its own socials. At some point, we're going to write them down in the doc so that I can say them offhand. But Janet, do you have those off the top of your head?
Do I ever? Of course.
I have them.
Janet, can you give me the time code for Another Crab's Treasure, please?
I definitely have them. Yeah. I mean, if you just click on over, you could see that we're at the Indie Council on Blue Sky. We're at the Indie Council on Instagram, and those are all of the ones. And then at the Indie Council _ on Twitter, because somebody took at Indie Council. And I'm not gonna be honest, I feel like you're not using it. So
yeah,
hand it over. Do I
With
post on any of
that,
those? You know what? I have something to work towards. All right, don't at me. But also, thank you for being able to talk to me on there because people have, and that's been useful.
yeah, this is gonna be a war. Just watch. This is when it all started. But until then, the session is closed. Go play some indies.
Y'all don't get my secret because
Wait, wait,
Jill.
wait. Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
it's
No, no,
fine.
go
That's
ahead.
it. Nope.
No, I'm sorry. Say the secret. Say the secret. I forgot.
Because people are sharing so many lovely words, I'm gonna drop a little Easter egg.
Easter egg.
One of the games we talked about during this episode is a part of the 6-Way Indie Showcase with a something new.
It's Balatro, everyone.
God, I wish. Oh, I wish.
Okay, that's the real end. Bye, everyone.